All right, welcome. We have quite a bit to get through today, so let's jump on in. So, multi-step campaigns from novice to ninja in no time. I have to tell you a funny story. Playing with Gemini to help me come up with some fun, creative titles for today's webinar, I pumped in a whole bunch of details, gave it a brief, and it came back with a whole range of details. And I settled on from novice to ninja in no time. Great, got everything organized, emails went out, everything was branded obviously with from novice to ninja, and then it comes time for me to prepare the actual presentation for today. And I thought, how on earth am I going to take people from a novice to a ninja in less than 45 minutes? So bear with me. What we may end up doing is a chapter 2 or episode 2 from novice to ninja starting next year. But anyway, let's jump in and get started. So what's the plan for the next 45 minutes? So welcome, obviously. Campaign Canvas Basics is where we'll begin. We'll look at the 4 key elements, Campaign Canvas examples. We'll look at a webinar and a newsletter, and also working with apps, because apps become a really important part quite often with the Campaign Canvas. And if we have time, we will look at Release 24D and Q&A. So just some usuals for you. As you know, we use Zoom to host and record our webinars. All the blogs or the replays will be available on our blog. If you'd like to ask questions, you can do that using the Q&A. And we've modified that chat function, which I should have probably updated this note here. It's not private. Everybody can participate in chat. So given that we've never really had a need for privacy, so that's fine. We'll open up the chat as well. So on that note, Adrian is on the line today and helping me monitor the chat and the Q&A. So whichever one you want to use, keep an eye on the chat though, because Adrian may pose some questions for you. And it'd be great to get your response if you can just keep an eye on the chat. Okay, so we did have one question this month. It just came from one of our US subscribers, but I thought I'd share it because it's a valid question I think most people would be interested in. And that is understanding how to do A/B testing on a multi-step campaign. And is it possible? And how can you do it instead of constantly doing A/B testing? So, look, I think it's a really valid question. And it's something that a lot of people, well, let me rephrase that. It's something that a number of people have inquired about over the years. So in a nutshell, the critical difference between the multi-step campaign and the simple email campaign in the way that you manage a A/B test scenario is the simple email campaign and its A/B testing function enables you to select the winning email automatically. And the key difference there is automatically. So on the campaign canvas, you can definitely do splits and you can send people to different things. So 2 completely identical assets except for one variable. Remember, if you're doing A/B testing, you can't have 2 completely different emails and then try and work out what the empirical value is of the difference in engagement, because that doesn't work. You need to have 2 identical emails with just one single change. So if you're looking to understand what impacts open rates, the only thing that you can really change is the subject line and maybe who the email comes from. But again, they're 2 different things. So it might just come from Marketing Cube, or it might come from Derek Bell, or it might come from Adrian Jones. So that's one thing that you could test. The second would be the subject line, looking at different subject lines, one with personalization contained and one without, potentially. The other critical thing is numbers. Okay, so the big challenge I've seen over the years for Eloqua clients is that they're rarely looking at campaigns where they're looking at 10,000 plus people in a single campaign. Now, there are certainly some Eloqua clients that do and have much larger numbers than that. But from an A/B testing point of view, you really need high numbers. So, okay, so what do you do as an Eloqua client who maybe your campaigns are sub 1,000 people? It's an event that you're running and you don't need 2,000 people showing up. You only need 150. So maybe you invite 1,000 and hope you get down to 150. So 1,000 is good, but it's really, you can't make assumptions based on one campaign outcome with any A/B testing that you might do. So what you want to do is come up with a bit of an A/B strategy that helps you look at it over time. So you may run over a 6-month period, you may run 6 to 8 events. So what you want to do is map that process out and then look very carefully at the analytics after each one of those and identify which has performed best based on whichever variable you're wanting to explore. Now, if you'd like to talk further about that, please reach out. We'd love to help you with that. We've certainly helped other clients do a similar sort of thing and just be a little bit more robust with it. But there's certainly validity, obviously, in the A/B scenario, and we'd certainly encourage you to have a look at that. But it can be done from the campaign canvas. But as I said, the key difference is that it can't be done automatically. That is, you can't select the winning email as a result of the outcome. That's the key difference. If you have any questions that you think of at any particular time, if you just go to your browser, you don't have to wait for the user group. Obviously, we try and answer the questions during the user group. But if you just go to myeloqua.com in your browser, you'll arrive at a Marketing Cube microsite where you'll be able to log your questions. So you can go there anytime that you like. All right, what do you need to know? Campaign Canvas. This is the novice side of things, not the ninja. Okay, so let's jump in and have a look. So some of the basics that we need to understand about the campaign canvas is that the campaign canvas enables you to have campaign members, that is people who are typically in your segment, to enter the campaign once, and at some point they will exit that campaign. So the underlying fundamental principle there is that by default, the individual person in a campaign, so typically in a segment, can only enter the campaign once, and at some point they will exit. Now, they will exit that campaign either based on the flow that you have created. Maybe you move them to another campaign, or they finish up at a wait step and that's done. They're out. And at the end of the end date of the campaign, anyone remaining in the campaign at that point, Eloqua will remove them for you, and that becomes the exit point. Wherever they are on the canvas is then the exit point. Now, never the same twice. So Eloqua will never send the same email to the same contact twice. So just in the office yesterday, just clarifying this with some folks. One common scenario is where you may want to send an email out to people, and then if they didn't open it, potentially resend that email. Okay, now you can do that, but that second email must be a save as of the first email. It can't be the exact same asset. You may have noticed when you look in the URL of any email, landing page, form, campaign, whichever, at the end of the URL, there's an ID, and that ID is unique to that particular asset. So whereas you may do a save as, then what you're creating is a whole new asset, which as far as Eloqua is concerned, has a new ID. So now on that campaign canvas, those two email assets are in fact separate and are different. But from your point of view, with the cosmetics and how they look at the content, etc., they're potentially identical. But in that scenario, probably the best thing to do is to change your subject line. If they didn't open the first one, let's work on the subject line to try and play with that, and maybe adjust the time of day that second email goes out to people would be a good example. Then the other thing from a basics point of view is that a campaign must have a beginning and an end. So there's always a start date and there's always an end date. Now, the end date can be kind of whatever you need it to be. You may launch on Monday and end it on Friday. Perfectly fine. You may launch it on Monday and close it or end it on Monday as well. Sometimes the question is, well, I can nominate a time and a date to launch a campaign, but why can't I nominate a time to end my campaign? So when does the campaign end? If I nominate the 30th of November, when does it actually end? Good question. So it ends at midnight on the day. So if it's the 30th of November, I like to say 11:59 p.m., just so it's a little bit easier. So 11:59 p.m., your time. So not East Coast time, US, or any other time. It's the time as nominated in your user profile. So if your user profile is based here in Australia and it's East Coast time, then it will be East Coast time. The only caveat there that I'm just thinking out loud is there is no summertime, okay, as far as Eloqua is concerned, which is a little bit of annoying from an end date point of view. But yeah, so it would be for New South Wales and Victoria and Tasmania, for example, it's Queensland time, which is Australian Eastern Standard Time is when it closes. Just FYI. Not a big deal, generally speaking, but just FYI. Okay, so keep that chat going. I'll see if I can get Adrian to incentivize you with some questions, and you can keep a go on that. Okay, so now the other thing we need to understand, and this is a reasonably common request from people who maybe are coming into Eloqua from different platforms. Some platforms behave the same as Eloqua, some are a little bit different. So there is no pause function on a campaign. Okay. The reality is that you actually don't really need very often to deactivate a campaign unless you want to fundamentally change the routing and the flow of the campaign canvas. You don't really often need to deactivate the campaign. So a campaign in Eloqua is either in draft or it's in active. You may see some campaigns that say completed. So completed means that it has reached the end date and Eloqua has then deactivated the campaign for you, which it says completed. However, if you go into a campaign and you want to deactivate it before the nominated end date, then it goes back into draft mode. Again, no big deal. But if you're wondering why there's draft, active, and completed, what's the difference? Well, not a great deal. The big thing with completed just means that you actually the system, so Eloqua has reached that end date and it has deactivated the campaign on your behalf based on the time that you've reached. Okay. Okay. And so that's my point there. So you don't often need to deactivate it, and that's why I sort of got rid of the orange light on the traffic light there. It's either draft or it's active. One of the two. Okay. So let's take a quick look at the campaign canvas. And I just want to point out some of the key areas of the canvas so you become a little bit more familiar with it. And then what we'll do is dive into having a closer look at the specific elements, and then we'll have a look at some actual campaigns so you can see what's going on. Okay, so welcome to Eloqua. So what I've decided to do is show you a active campaign that I've got in play at the moment because I want to highlight a few different things for you, which is hard to do if it's just a draft or a blank template per se. So what are we looking at? So first thing you'll notice here with the segments at the top, one is green and one is gray. What does that mean? What's the difference? Okay, so the green one tells me without even looking at it, I know that that's actually a dynamic segment, meaning that people will be added to this campaign regularly until it's deactivated. And Eloqua is actually going to check every 3 hours. Now, that particular segment is for subscribers of our privacy and governance newsletter. So we're constantly promoting that through LinkedIn and different email campaigns, et cetera, and inviting people to subscribe. And so by ensuring that I have the reevaluation frequency set to every 3 hours, if I pick somebody up today, for instance, maybe they subscribe, they'll be pulled into this campaign within 3 hours and they'll be sent the first email. So within 3 hours of them actually subscribing, they'll get the latest edition of that particular newsletter. So that's obviously a good thing. So that's using the automation. Okay, so that one's green because it's still active. This one's gray because it's simply set up to add members once when the campaign is first activated. And that particular list was Marketing Cube staff, as an FYI. All right, so other key things that you'll generally want to look at while the campaign is in play is probably some of the reports. And some of the reports are really quite helpful. Email statistics is a good one. Just be aware that when you come in here, depending on what you did last, Eloqua will nominate what it's showing you based on the values. So if you come in here and everything is 0, like, well, hang on a minute, just take a breath, come over here and select a different time frame. Now, the maximum time frame you can go to is 3 months. So it will show you the level of behavior within the last 3 months. Okay, so you can see this particular campaign has 2 emails, first and second. The second one pretty much goes to those who didn't open the first one. So that's what that's doing. So you can see right away that it does work to send it through. People do open it. It does get a little bit of activity. The other 2 reports that are really quite helpful are your entry and exit reports. So if you're trying to understand the 38 people and kind of when it happened, you can access it here. And again, it's defaulted to 3 months in this instance. And I can see here, if I look up, so the bulk of people came in on was that September 12th? then 15th of October, 17th of October, 7th of November, etc. So you can see the only reason that's possible is because I had the segments set up to add members regularly. Okay. So that's a great tip. I mean, from a newsletter point of view, you got all the time and energy to build your newsletter and you send it to a set group of people and that's it. Okay. So it's live for a day and that's about it. You can get a lot more mileage out of the asset that you're building by thinking about expanding your thinking in relation to the campaign end date, start date, end date, etc., and how frequently you want to add people to it based on people that now meet the criteria to drop into that campaign. The exit report, as I said, is also helpful. The other thing you'll notice here too is because I actually name the wait step or the step on the canvas, I can see here at a glance exactly how they exited. So by that, I mean, if we go to the bottom here, you can see these various wait steps. Now, instead of just leaving them as wait, which is what Eloqua gives you as the default, by actually naming them and giving them a relevant title, it then really enhances this exit report for you. Because otherwise, the exit report would just be like the campaign step name, which is wait, 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 which is kind of useless, doesn't give you any additional insight. Now, this particular canvas is also templated to within an inch of its life. So I don't have to do that. I've done it once and it'll be the same every single time. So templates are obviously the right way to go. Now, the other thing that is often called upon, or people aren't aware of, I should say, and is really helpful, you can move people. If for whatever reason you decide that this person sitting over here should in fact be sitting over here for whatever reason, it does happen. You can double click on the number one, highlight the individual, click on move, and now Eloqua is saying, well, where do you want to send them? Okay. And so you just click on the relevant section and then say move members, and it will move that particular person over there. You'll get a warning that pops up on the screen and saying, hey, are you sure you want to do this? Of course you are. And then you can move the person. Okay. And you can do all of that without even having to deactivate the campaign. So, as I said, the only reason you'd really ever need to want to deactivate a campaign is if you want to fundamentally change the routing of what's happening. Okay. Then over here under options, you've got campaign fields. Now, these are the values that will feed through to your dashboards. Now, if you don't have these as required, and you know they're required because of the asterisks, I'd really encourage you to think about that. And if you're not sure, please reach out because this makes your dashboards far more powerful because you can then filter by product, you can filter by region, you can filter by campaign type, and you can get far more or far greater granularity in your dashboards by looking at this information. So this literally takes 5 minutes to do, but it probably takes a good few hours and a few iterations to go through the team to work out, well, what are the variables that we want to be able to report on? How do we want to be able to slice and dice our relevant campaigns? Strong tip for you to explore that one if you haven't. Of course, you can save as templates. Typically, what I would never do is take something like this and save it as a template with all of the assets added. I would always start with a clean sheet or a clean campaign canvas, and I would drop in all the relevant pieces, etc., and I would save it like that, much cleaner. You can certainly configure some things, like I said, all the exit, these wait steps that I call exit points. I name them for templates, but certainly not emails, etc., and other variables because it just, it causes unnecessary confusion. So template building is a great way, especially for newer users. If your colleagues have been helpful, hopefully they've created templates, which has saved you time and helped you get up to speed much faster. Now, the other thing you'll notice is these dotted lines. So what these dotted lines are telling you is that in these various emails, there are hyperlinks to these landing pages. And then I've added a few more, which you can do. You can add as many as you want. We have a microsite that is feeding this particular privacy and governance newsletter. So again, in my template, I've just added all of the relevant landing pages that make up that microsite. So I don't have to remember to do it. Now, why do I do it? I do it because when I look at the analysis, and this is how you can jump into sort of a quick insight report directly from the campaign canvas, is I want to be able to get a bit of an idea as to the time that is being spent on those relevant landing pages. And so by making sure I've got those icons positioned on the campaign canvas and with all those dotted lines that you can see, I can get a much better idea. So I can see down here, I've got about 1 hour. What is that? 1 hour, I think, 3 minutes and 4 seconds of view time. Average time people are spending is 9 minutes. I think that is. Yep, 9 minutes on the page, and total visitors is 6. And what I'm looking at is just the visits to those pages in the context of this campaign. It's not in the life of the landing page because the landing pages make up a whole bunch of pages and we have different campaigns feeding to it. So what I'm looking at is just this campaign and the total number of people that are in this campaign and their level of engagement with that particular asset. So just an FYI on that one. All right, so that's a high-level view of the campaign canvas. If there's any specific questions, please drop those in and we can explore those for you. Okay, so there are 4 key sets of elements on the campaign canvas, and it's audience, assets, decisions, and actions. And typically, as you're designing your campaign, you would kind of go in that same flow. You would begin with starting with your audience. Which are the assets that you're wanting to send? The assets is your email or landing pages and forms. So which emails are we wanting to send people? That's your assets. Then we make decisions. So did they open an email? Did they click? Did they submit a form? And most of those decisions will have a yes/no response. And so once you go down a yes or a no direction, the next step is to take an action. And that action can be a whole range of things. So let's have a look at what they might be. So each element really helps you drive the CX. Now, when you look at this part of the campaign canvas, in your instance, it's probably going to look a little bit different to mine. There's some standard pieces here within the audience section that everybody has, but the ones that you don't see are probably more reflective of apps that we've added. So you'll see we're kind of a little bit over the top when it comes to webinars. That's because we're helping clients, etc. So we add them to our own platform, obviously, so we can support clients in doing that. But you can see there's Facebook Leads Ad Feeder. There's this one here is an On24, which is a webinar platform. We have GoToWebinar, LinkedIn Lead Gen, incoming SMS, Zoom, On24 again, and more Zoom that you can see there. So that's all entry points. That's how people come into your campaign. So a segment is the option that you're going to use, probably 90% of the time. But there are other ways that people can come into Eloqua. And if you start to connect your webinar platforms, that's one example. The LinkedIn lead gen forms is a very popular one. We have a number of clients who actively use that as a way to get in. So people are in LinkedIn, they fill in a LinkedIn form, they stay within the LinkedIn environment. But when they fill in that LinkedIn form, which is a paid for service with Microsoft and LinkedIn, that information then flows automatically for you into Eloqua onto the campaign canvas. So saves time and it's much faster and certainly beats having to access Excel spreadsheets that you download from the back end of LinkedIn. That's time consuming and messy, etc. And more personally identifiable data sort of floating around the place in Excel spreadsheets, which is not good. The next one is assets. So the assets is pretty simple. It's email, form, and landing page. And email is the one obviously you're going to use most of the time, but you certainly want to make sure that your forms and landing pages, and you'll notice there it says in reporting only. That's why we add them. And so I showed you there just a moment ago, the reporting, so you can get that level of detail in your overall campaign reports as to how much activity took place on those landing pages and also in the forms as well. So if getting people to submit a form is a key objective of your campaign, then we want to make sure that that form is captured there on the campaign canvas so that it can be included in your reporting, the context of your report. So here are all the decisions, and you'll see many of the decisions have question marks after them, which means it's either a yes/no response. Things like compare contact fields, which you've got here at the top, what that one enables you to do is identify a particular value on an individual person's contact. Let's say, for example, industry. It could be one of them. Or if in the university space, it could be the primary course of interest. Maybe you have that stored on the contact as well. So you can query it. So as people are going through a campaign, you could query it. To give you an example, when people request an SMS from us for today's webinar, as they go through that canvas, the first question I ask is, do we have a mobile phone number? Yes or no? And if it's a yes, great. I head down and then make sure they've checked for they wanted an SMS. Yep, great. And then we send them the SMS. So if we don't have a mobile phone number, the fact that you've requested one is kind of irrelevant because for some reason the mobile phone number is not there. So then we send you straight to the email, for example. So you can query anything. Anything that's on the contact can be queried, enabling you to adjust the journey for that particular person. You can see custom objects are also available. And then really the list just goes on and on and on. Something to remember about this one, visited website. What does that actually mean? So that means they visited the website, period. Doesn't tell you or give you the option of a page on the website or a group of pages on the website. It's just that they've visited your website, period, full stop, within the time frame that you might outline within that particular step. If you wanted to be more specific, again, universities are a great example, or say an organization with multiple products or services, you may have a bunch of URLs grouped together that is all about, say, studying business at university. Or if your organization provides financial advice in relation to retirement, then you may gather a whole bunch of URLs from your website, group them all together, and we can put those into a shared filter. And so in the shared filter, so now it's not just did they visit the website, but did they visit the website in the context of these pages, yes or no? And if they did, are you going to then adjust the message based on their activity within that particular time frame? So lots that you can do with decisions. And you'll see, again, more apps in there, Zoom, Motiva. We'll talk about Motiva shortly. A whole range of different ways. Checking if people have registered for webinars, etc. Loads of them. Now, what about actions? So this is now what you want to do as a result of the decision outcome. So did they open an email? Maybe that's the question you're asking. So what do you want to do next? You may go straight to sending them another email, or you may want to move them to another program. You may want to do a whole range of things. You might want to send them an SMS. Again, the world's your oyster, right? There's tons of things that you can do. So all of these steps together, and I certainly can't in 45 minutes walk you through each one of those. But if you do have questions on any of them, please reach out. But you will also find some great information in the Eloqua Help Center as well, quite detailed on those. All right, let's dive in. Time check. Okay. So Eloqua and webinar apps. So you saw there as we were looking at those various elements that there's a whole range of different webinar apps. These are kind of probably the four main ones. So we use Zoom, as you're aware, to support you and to deliver our webinars and meetings, etc. On24 is a platform that we have also used and we certainly highly recommend. It's an amazing platform. Probably does have a range of advantages. It all comes down to your need at the end of the day and what you're trying to achieve and what your objective is. But On24 does offer a really special interface that really is very engaging for people. So GoToWebinar and WebEx, these two products have been around for a long time. They're great products. They're pretty stable. People like them. A lot of organizations use them. And all of those four platforms integrate beautifully with Eloqua. Now, they all have slightly different levels of functionality in relation to what they do. I would argue that the On24 platform probably is at the top of the list in relation to getting really good engagement data back into Eloqua. So through a custom object, poll results and question and people's answers, chat records, duration of attendance. They also have some proprietary information that helps you gauge a person's level of attentiveness during the webinar. And I think that probably has to do with like the active window. So you might have the webinar playing over here. Like maybe today you've got Derek waffling over here on this screen while you're doing something on this screen. Right. So this is the active screen and Derek's just kind of waffling over here. Right. So that would kind of indicate that you're maybe not as engaged. So it's a proprietary solution from them and it's kind of cool. Now, all of that information can be woven into and included into lead score models, for example. So there's a whole range of things you can do. Now, regardless of which platform you choose, there are a range of things to consider. And I'm going to walk you through here in a moment what that might look like. But let's keep going and we'll come back. The key thing with any of these approaches, whether it's a webinar or a newsletter, is to really think about templates. Now, we build templates all the time for clients. We go through a process of understanding what the needs are, what they're trying to do, etc., and then building out effective templates. And now, what I want you to realize is that I do this myself. I mean, there's very rarely a campaign that I run that I don't start from a template. Now, the template is a starting point. It's like a very significant leg up to get you building your campaign much faster. Now, does every single campaign that I run from a template, is it always identical to the template? Well, the user group is probably one example where I'd say yes, 95% of the time it is. Other things change slightly depending on the campaign and the content and time of year, for instance, all those sorts of things. But they certainly save time. And they hopefully, as far as you're concerned at the other end experiencing it, there's a degree of consistency in the way that we reach out to you and what that experience feels like from your point of view. And all of that's possible because of templates. So whether it's a campaign template, email templates, again, I'm a big believer in strong email templates. And again, we build these for clients all the time. I mean, for me, largely as a marketing team of one, I just couldn't do what we do if I didn't utilize templates to do this. So I just wanted to show you that really is true. I'm not just talking about it, I'm actually doing it as well. So it's right here. You can see it on the screen. So we have campaign templates, we have email templates, segment templates is another one, especially when you're talking about active subscribers, wanting to make sure you exclude people from certain things on a regular basis. There's a whole range of things you want to do, and trying to remember to do that every time is not typically ideal. And sometimes simply taking a previous segment and doing a save as is not the best idea either. So utilizing a template is often, I think, the much smarter way to do it. All right. So newsletters, let's jump in and have a look. All right. So what I wanted to show you is progressively a few different things. So first one is if you have campaigns that look like this, I would argue you're not really maximizing Eloqua. Okay. You could do this with Outlook. You can do it with MailChimp. I'll just keep going because there's not much more I can say about that one. Okay, so what is a basic newsletter? This to me would be a basic newsletter, and we've certainly encouraged a lot of clients to play with this type of logic in relation to probably a baseline level of performance. So what's happening? All right, so here's your primary audience. In this case, I've set it subscribers because it's a newsletter, so we might have our subscribers sitting in here. Over here, what I've got is a seed list. That marketing cube, that's essentially our staff. So team members are going to that one. Now, why have them in two separate ones? Well, it's just easier to have these guys constant. I can just grab that anytime I want it, and I can add it to anything. The other thing is because I utilize the two different segments on the campaign canvas, when I look at the reporting, I can look at the reporting in the context of those two groups. While my colleagues are hyper engaged and clicking and opening on everything, that's great. That's really nice. But what I'm really interested in is obviously what our target audience are doing, the subscribers. So I can look at their performance just based on their behavior. Now, for us, our staff numbers are small compared to some of yours. So if you're running segments where you might have 50 to 100, 150 or more staff in a campaign, that's going to make a reasonable statistical difference potentially to your campaign. So have a think about creating a seed list where you can have a separate segment and separate those guys out. We always do a wait step in here, and that can be for a whole range of reasons. If you ever need to move people for some reason from here back to here because you want them to flow through again because maybe there was something that was preventing that email being sent and you've updated their profile, so that's now changed, so you need to move them back. You can't move people back to a segment. You can only move them as far back as the step before, or in this case, the wait step. So just FYI on that one. Okay, so email goes out the door. things to understand that are possible is you can create scheduling. So once you actually add an asset to here, then you can pick this up and modify it and adjust a window of time and also days of the week that you may want that particular communication to go out the door. So that's scheduling. In this case, we're then going to wait for a period of time, and then we're going to ask the question, did they open this particular email? Now, if they did open the email, maybe that's the main campaign objective. They opened it. Fantastic. Then we're going to move down to a wait step. That becomes the exit point. And you'll notice how I've named it again, right? So exit, opened newsletter. However, over here on the left-hand side, they didn't open the first email. So I'm going to try again. And remember that these two must be separate assets. It can't be the same email that you're adding. You need to take your first email, select save as, and then assign it here. Again, subject line or from. Email is probably who, they're really the only two differences that you can utilize. And then they can exit out of there. Is that the end? Well, it doesn't have to be, right? So I would say that's a basic exercise at a campaign canvas. What if, here's one I prepared earlier. What if we had a campaign objective to really get people to click on a primary article? So in our newsletter, there might be 5 articles, but there's a significant article at the top, and it's your primary call to action. That's the one you really want people to look at, and you hope that's the one that they engage with. So what we could do now is, instead of just simply asking, did they open the email? We can ask, did they open the email? The next step is, did they click on the key article? So this is a shared filter. So over here on the left-hand side, under your campaign steps, you'll find a decision called a shared filter. And so the shared filter you create elsewhere in Eloqua, and you do it through tools and shared filters. That's where you would create the shared filter. And building a shared filter is pretty much like building a segment. It's pretty much the same. You're putting in the same level of variables that you would when you're building out a segment, for example. And so that's why I often like to refer to a shared filter as segmentation on the fly. That is, as people are coming through the campaign, their particular level of engagement may have changed from here to this point. And hopefully the change is they've clicked on specific URLs contained in your newsletter. Because remember, if you were to use, where we clicked email, if you were to use this one, the difference here is that clicked email is asking, have they just simply clicked on the email? That's all. It's not asking what they clicked on. It's just, did they click? Now, they might have clicked on your logo and gone to your homepage. They might have clicked on unsubscribe. They might have clicked on a Facebook icon to go to your social pages. Kind of all irrelevant to your campaign objective. So while clicked email is good from a really early engagement point of view, say a nurturing campaign, for example, just trying to gauge engagement. Are people opening? Are they clicking? Yep, great. That's good. But this is now very specific, and we want to be really clear on what we're doing. So that's why a shared filter can be really helpful. Now, what about these people over here? So at the moment, what's going to happen is they didn't open the first one. They head over here, and at the current configuration, I'm going to send them the email, and then bang, they're out of the campaign. Well, it doesn't really work, does it? Because I still want to know if these people engaged as well. So there are a few ways you can do it. You could actually just highlight all of these and select copy, and then select paste, and kind of, replace it over here like this. Just delete that and join the dots. Not necessary. You don't really need to do that. The other option is get rid of the wait step and actually just route people back over here. Now, the only other thing that I would probably factor into this now is this group has had a wait element before they come through, whereas these people haven't. So what I would probably do is add an evaluation period here for, let's say 5 days, for example. Now, what that means is if I select 5 days, I'll show you this so you can see what happens, the evaluation period. So I've selected 5 days. So it's not 0. It's not 24 hours. It's more than 1 day or more. Okay, so it's clearly this one. If the evaluation period is set for more than 1 day, Eloqua will retry the evaluation every 30 minutes. Okay, so what that means is every 30 minutes, Eloqua is going to ask the question, did they click on the link? Did they click on the link? Did like a small child at the back of a car on a family holiday, right? Did they click on the link? Did they click on the link? Every 30 minutes, it will ask that question for a period of 5 days. As soon as the person meets the criteria within that 5 day period, that's fine. They will head off in this direction. However, at the end of the 5 day period, if the response is still no, then they'll head down into this direction here. Okay. And you can see I probably need to change the language here because I've not really queried after that email has been sent. I've not asked the question, did they open it? Not critical that I need to do that either, by the way, because really my objective is to understand, did they click? Did they open it? I don't really care. I want to know, did they click? Okay. So I'd probably just change the language here to reflect that bit more reality. Makes sense. So the other nice thing here is, well, if they did click on something in the newsletter that was your primary objective and you've got more information that you want to share with these people, then you can take them over here and maybe move them to another campaign canvas where they can go through something that's far more targeted based on that relevant piece of information. Looking at webinars, what I choose to do, and this is just one way to do it, you don't have to do it the same way, but the reason I do it this way is I have three canvases. I have a canvas that pushes out the invitations, that drives people to a registration page. The second canvas is purely for reminders. So once people reach our registration page, fill in our form, I use the form to push people to the reminder campaign. And so my language is invitations. There's 1, 2, and 3 invitations. The reminders only go to people who have, in fact, registered. That's all. It's just a language thing. Some people call the second invitation a reminder, and that just does my head in personally. So, so that's why we have reminders. And then you'll see there's post event. So there's no reason these two can't be on the same canvas. That's fine. That works as well. It just means that you need to have all of the assets ready to go as soon as you're up and running. So my process for webinars is I begin with the landing page to get all my messaging down and the form, etc. And I want to get that landing page live as quickly as possible. And so that's up and running, and then I can put it on the website. I can start putting it on social, and so on and so forth. And so the reminder campaign is the first one that goes live. I then follow with the invitations, and now I formally start pushing emails out the door to subscribers to drive them to register, i.e. you. And then the last one, of course, is post-event. So it's kind of, if you really want to personalize the post-event comms, it's hard to obviously do those before the event. However, if you're not wanting to hyper-personalize those, you could still potentially do everything on a single campaign. Again, you just need to have everything completed and ready to go before you activate the campaign. That's the only key difference that you've got to factor in there. All right. Well, I was quite certain that we would not make the time frame. It's now 2:46. I'll just very quickly walk you through some of these apps and things to consider. You'll find more apps on the Oracle Cloud Marketplace. If you're not sure where that is, your Eloqua administrator can help you get there through the settings area. Excuse me, within Eloqua, or you can just Google Oracle Cloud Marketplace and you'll find things there. Just be aware of, one consideration is, where is that app provider storing your data, or are they actually storing your data? Just something to be aware of. Is it offshore? Where is it? So I'll leave that with you to think about. Artificial intelligence, obviously it's the hot topic. Oracle provides you with the Eloqua Advanced Intelligence, which is an add-on to Eloqua, which gives you Gen AI and subject line assistance, send time optimization, and a range of other functions. Another one that we wanted to talk about, and we'll talk about both of these more next year in detail, is Motiva. Now, the reason I added Motiva was based on that first question about automating the A/B function. So Motiva has an app, which you saw on the campaign canvas there earlier, which does enable you to automate the A/B testing on the multi-step campaigns or the campaign canvas. So just more of an FYI, but again, we'll explore more of these next year. The other one I wanted to show you was looking at QR codes for check-ins. So if you're looking to do something a bit special and make your life certainly a lot easier, This is an Eloqua email that's gone out for an event. It's a QR code has been uniquely generated at the point of the confirmation email being sent, so that when that person arrives at the event, we can just simply grab any smartphone with a QR code reader, scan the QR code, and Eloqua is immediately updated, letting us know that that person has in fact arrived at the event. So super cool. And yeah, you can automate so much more as a result with that information. We won't have time to go through 24D, but there will be information contained in the blog post, which we'll get to in the next week or so. But our next episode, so this is it for 2024 across Asia Pac. Thank you so much for your support throughout the year. We appreciate your participation, but we will see you on Wednesday, the 5th of February in 2025. So have a wonderful Christmas break and a summer holiday. Enjoy your time off, and we look forward to seeing you next year. I'll hang around if there's any questions, but thank you again, and I'll see you next year, if not earlier. Thanks, everybody.